After my recent experience with this interaction, with this conversation with what I perceive to be an alien species, I have a lot of questions, but one question keeps coming up. And as I'm the sort of person who has looked all over the place in life, I have a lot of memories from information I've read, and they've all come together with this question, and I want to share this, so a little bit of a different video. And I want to say, the reason I feel my mind stays free is I acknowledge that I'm not the knower of knowledge. Whenever I've gone into the space of feeling that I'm the knower of knowledge, I become quite rigid because I formed some sort of character in me. We are a channel of knowledge, and it's very important, I feel, when we receive information to acknowledge it's out there and now we are a channel for it. It stops us building up any sort of egoic identity above other people, that we now have this, when people look down and say, you're a sheeple and I'm the knower. It separates us from this loving presence of God when we do that. And it is that loving presence that I want to relate this video to, because I am still under the absolute firm understanding that every human can awaken into a presence, a nowness, an awakened state whereby the voice of God will direct them to their highest good in this world. And very few manage to get there. But I believe this is still the goal for everybody. This is the whole point of it. And so videos like this I haven't made very often lately, because I find people detour from becoming rooted in that presence by our human nature of wandering off into what's entertaining and distracting and these rabbit holes, as you were. But I'm doing this to bring to presence those persons who may be interested in this field, and to say I still strongly feel that this awakening is the necessity required, even in the realm of what we're talking about. This species, I've seen them, and as I've said, vibrationally, when you are in presence, you have power, dominion. This is exactly what Jesus Christ said, that you will cast out demons when you are aligned in that way. I agree, 100%. But what I want to ask is it that the spiritual rebirth, as Jesus called it, or enlightenment, as others call it, or the spiritual awakening, as others call it, I perceive it all to be the same thing. Could it be that the necessity for that is actually the process of human beings backward engineering inside themselves to a state of consciousness that our ancestors had prior to being genetically interfered with by an alien force, by another worldly species? And I don't pull that from just thin air. And I want to share with you why I don't pull that from thin air. I must start with the most famous, which is the Sumerian creation story. In that story you have Enki and Enlil, and it is about the Anunnaki. Enki and Enlil are part of a species who have visited Earth. This is the oldest engraved creation story on Earth. They are part of a species that has come to Earth to mine materials from the planet. And they are petitioned to make a slave species that can do this work, rather than, as the inscribings say, letting the gods do the work. So the gods are mining, they are labouring, and they petition the leaders, these brothers Enki and Enlil, to create a slave species to do the mining for them. And so they do. And that species is the birth of humanity. And they do so by taking the humans that are there, who are far different to ourselves, and genetically interfering with them. And in doing that, they create something that can serve them, just intelligent enough to take orders and do their bidding, but at that time not intelligent enough to start solving the mysteries of the universe. So an obedient slave. Now, this is not a one-off. The Maya also have a creation story called the Popol Vuh. This text is called the Popol Vuh. It was translated by a missionary, I believe it was, from Spain, who was living with the Maya. The Popol Vuh says the same thing. It says humans were genetically created by a species that came to this planet long, long ago. So there's two examples in history of this being present. Now, one of the interesting things is in the Sumerian text, there's a point where they are having this weird competition where they're making disabled humans and stuff. And they make one and they say, you have made something that is neither alive nor dead. Now, for me as a man, when I fall away into my mind, I feel dead. When I come to the moment, to the presence, the awakened state, and I see the world without thought and memory, without language, when I can look at the beauty around me, when I can look at the sky and not call it sky, then I can observe it and my senses can be lit up by the experience of its stunningness and its ever-changing beauty. When I throw the word sky over it, it's as if I die to that experience. I feel the difference. And so in that state of consciousness of being present, I feel alive. And I believe that state of consciousness is where the presence of God is, the nowness. When I fall into my mind, I feel dead. And so a species that is neither alive, a being that is neither alive nor dead. I feel that way myself. That when I liberate from the suffering of the mind in that space of the nowness of life, beautiful, freedom, that high vibration comes within me, my heart opens, it's wonderful. I feel alive, but I feel dead in my mind. And so I feel there's some importance to that sentence because of that. But it doesn't stop there, because in the Bible you have, of course, the Nephilim. Of course, the Nephilim, I should say. And in the Nephilim are coming as gods who have children with the daughters of men. And so this is a reference to something. Who are they? But beyond there, you have the story of Esau and his brother. And Esau is a human being, and he is so hairy that his brother deceives his blind father by holding out a goat and letting him stroke the goat, and he thinks, this is Esau. And he deceives him. And Esau is very innocent and beautiful. And his brother, who is more like us, is no longer innocent and beautiful and deceives Esau and leads him astray. Esau is a very hairy being, according to this text, according to the Bible. In Kings in the Bible, Elijah takes off in a chariot of fire, which sounds awfully like a spaceship, that ascends into the sky until you can't see it anymore, and it ascends in a whirlwind. It sounds like a spaceship. And so I'm not pulling this from nowhere. In the Sumerian texts, you also have Enkidu, and I've made a video about Enkidu. Enkidu is the first Adam and Eve. Enkidu lives in Eden and is also a hairy being, a hairy humanoid, a hominid that is hairy, and is lured by persons who look more like us into vanity by saying you need to comb your hair, you need to lay with this harlot, you need to come away from the alignment with the laws of nature and be in the indulgence of this world of ours. And Enkidu loses connection. In the Colburn Bible, which few have heard about, that's the Druid Bible. They say it's from the Druids. It's a beautiful text, and in there's Yaldo. And Yaldo lives on a mountain and is a vegan, lives in line with nature, will not hurt anything, and has a companion, a hunter, that he helps to heal. And that companion and he live together, and the companion likes to eat meat, but Yaldo does not. And the companion goes down and meets a harlot. And after laying with the harlot, comes back to the mountain and can't find Yaldo anymore. He can't find his higher version. But Yaldo is a long-haired wild man. Yaldo is innocent. If you look at the world we live in as one ecological support system of environmental and spiritual, when you live in line and you are in presence, the energy field of your body is connected to the vibration of that eternal field. When you start abusing nature to overeat, or maybe for just pleasure of your own flesh, fleshly pleasure, not to procreate, not to give thanks for this beautiful space, not to help one another, not to take care of this beautiful land, but to get indulgence for stimulus in your body. As you do that, you energetically separate from that sweet spot of the presence. And you will no longer meet in the mountain, the higher place of consciousness. This is why Moses climbs a mountain to meet the burning bush. The mountain is the higher place of consciousness. You won't meet this innocent being, Yaldo. But Yaldo is depicted as a long-haired human, a wild man, like Enkidu, like Esau is long-haired. And so all of this tied together, along with Elijah going up in a spaceship of some description in Kings, if you read it, I only ask that question. Is it that our ancestry, our lineage, were living in Eden as a different type of hominid species, and an outer world, another planetary species came and genetically interfered with us and separated us from the space that we see the animals living within? And actually reconnecting to there, not that us having intelligence is bad, but reconnecting to there is actually the journey of spiritual awakening, is the journey of enlightenment, is the journey of being born again, as Jesus called it. Because when you return to that, you feel whole and full and compassionate and loving and joyous. And when you're separated from that, you get filled with pride and anger, and you need to grab at the world for pleasure because you don't feel any joy from life. You don't feel that wholeness of your soul. You fall into the mind, you fall into the being that is neither alive nor dead, you fall into the dead state. And in the dead state, you grab and grab and grab for pleasure because you want to escape that heaviness of life, and so you think, some worldly stimulation will do it. Is awakening humans going through the process of returning to the stillness whereby they can connect with our human ancestry that lived in that stillness of mind prior to the genetic interference of another worldly force. And is it that force that I saw? Is it they? Are those the ones? Are they still here, interfering? Interdimensionally they are. I know it. I've seen it. And Jesus called them fallen angels, demons, whatever you want to call them. I'm calling them a higher dimensional species because they have individual character traits. And I see them on people and I take them off people, and they have no dominion in that vibration. Because when you enter presence, when you live, as I said at the beginning, when you feel you are the knower of knowledge, you create an image of who you are, you separate from that expansive presence. When you accept that you're not a knower of knowledge, as one example, it's a stretch of humility, in a sense, to see that, to say, oh yeah, actually I don't know anything, I'm just channeling what's already known. It changes, there's a different feeling to it. In humility, you are in presence. You have no sense of self-controlling the outcomes. You have no idea that you are a separate person, a mental identity, the stories you've told yourself and all the pride and arrogance that's involved in that. You are free in the moment. And free in that moment for your senses to interpret and interact the nowness and the messages from there is where the voice of God guides you to your highest good. Because in that freedom, you are in the highest of vibration. In the story of the idea that you're the knower of knowledge, your vibration is less and you get filled with anger, etc. These beings rely on us being in a low vibration. Their weakness is us in a high vibration, and the highest vibration any human can be in is to return themselves to that presence where you see the moment without language and memory. And so I theorize all of this based on that information, but I don't theorize that presence is the strongest state for a human to be in, and I don't theorize that there are fallen ones, higher dimensional species, whatever you want to call them, demons, influencing humanity constantly. But I know how to ensure they can't influence us, and that is to stay in the presence. In that presence, your vibration and theirs does not match, and they have no dominion over you. And they can't reach that vibration because they will not surrender. They will not surrender to God in presence because they wish to control it with tech, so they can't reach that vibration. Or control it with pride, arrogance, ultimately. So, I leave that there for you to ponder as I am. Maybe. God bless, guys. Have a beautiful weekend. Bye.
Melissa was born in 2017 with hydrocephalus, which is a condition where an accumulation of fluid occurs within the brain. This excess fluid causes the ventricles to widen, putting pressure on the brain's tissues. Her father left when she was 7 months old, and her mother has been struggling with money and could no longer get her daughter treated and healed. Finances have become so tight they are receiving food and shelter from neighbors. With little to no options available and a sense of desperation, Melissa's mother, Nima, has resorted to prostitution to bring home money. A few years in, she developed fibroids, and her doctor had advised her to stop prostitution or it'll get worse. In the coming days, thanks to our medical fund, Melissa will have access to life-changing and saving surgery. That fund is there to allow us to give immediate help to those children who need it. However, we also have to replenish that fund to ensure we can keep our support available for the next child in need. If you feel like you can help our medical fund in any way, we would love to hear from you. Or you can visit the dedicated medical fund page link in the description of this video. We are excited to bring you updates on their new path in life in the near future. We thank you so much for being a part of our mission to provide resources to children and single mothers who are in need, providing them with sustainable solutions for a better life. Much love, family.